Waiting for you.
Of course. To organize yourself. Good morning. I'd like to welcome all of you here for the regular meeting for the CCSD. This is our regular board meeting. Today is March 13th, 2025. It is 10:02 a.m. And I'd like to call the meeting to order. Hello, Mr. Carmel. Let's go ahead and pledge allegiance. Would you join me, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So we do have a quorum. We have all 5 of our board members here today, so that meets our quorum responsibility. I do not have a formal president's report, but mostly I just like to say that I love it when people come see us. And so I'm so glad that you're all here. Let's look at the agenda. I do have one thing that I want to do, and that is that I'd like to you do agenda item 6D, which is the discussion about the Cambria skate park. I'd like to do that early on. We do have someone who isn't able to be here, but will be calling in, and she has a plane to catch. So that's one of the reasons. And then also we have a lot of people here today to speak on this. No. But there are other things we need to do before that, so we will get to that as soon as we can.
Good. I've had an agenda review
Yes.
suggestions following up on what you said.
Yes.
Madam President. I'd put 6D at the beginning of regular business and may have put 6C right after it there, because 6C is about the park plan and what action is taken or decisions made or discussion that occurs in 6D will kind of affect 6C.
Sure.
And put them up at the top of regular business.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I was going to ask for the same thing.
Okay. Anything?
Thank you.
And you too. Okay. Well, Director Farmer, did you have any requests?
I think it's been covered, right? Thank you.
President Scott,
Yes.
staff does have a request. We have been working with Stillwater, which is covered under regular business item 6A for the last week, and we told them that they should be here at 11.
Yeah.
So I hope that can take the first regular business item before the skate park.
It depends on what time it is.
Okay.
But I mean, in the scheme of things, we'll definitely take that into consideration. You're welcome. Okay. Any other agenda review? No? How about board member communications? Yes, Director Farmer?
Thank you, President Scott. I just want to affirm how blessed we are to live in Cambria, to live here on the Central Coast, having this overnight rain that will continue to keep the hillsides green, to help us feel better about life, and then have a sunny day today. So we should never take our blessings for granted. I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's go ahead then and take public comment. And this would be public comment on anything not on the agenda. And once you come up to the podium, you will have 3 minutes to speak. So we have one slip from Christine Heinrichs. Ms. Heinrichs, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Christine Heinrichs from Cambria. I'd like to announce that I have been appointed to the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary Advisory Council as the SLO at-large member. And as that's an outreach role that welcomes communication from anyone in the community, from all agencies within the community, and communicates back with the advisory council as to sanctuary events. There is a free lecture series going on and upcoming Wednesday nights up at Hearst Castle Theaters. And you can consult me or consult the Discovery Center about that. The Discovery Center is part of the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. Thank you.
Thank you and congratulations. Hey. Do we have any other public comment online?
No.
Any other public comment in-house? All right. Do we have the sheriff or the fire chief here? We do have the fire chief here. Would you like to do your report? Okay. This is under public safety. And we try to get their reports done early so that if they get called out on an emergency, that they can do that.
Thank you, Madam President.
Yes, thank you, Chief Burke.
Yeah, so to start off with here, we've got the fire chief's report for February of 2025. In February, we had a total of 85 incidents. We had 8 false alarms, 19 public service assists, 6 hazardous conditions, and 51 medical emergencies and 1 fire. If you're going down to the lower half of the page, we transported 55 residents and 11 non-residents. For February of 2024, we had a total of 88 calls. Year to date in 2025 is 174, and year to date in 2024 was 168. Moving on to the second page, we go on to training. So we focused on defensive tactics, and this is all with in regards to structure fires, ventilation tactics as well, Blevy and natural gas explosions, QI, EMS call review, and rope rescue. We had a pretty big month as far as public education. I presented at the Lions Club a kind of a little bit of a emergency preparedness kind of a presentation for them as by their request. And then we also had our fire department at the Coast Union Career Day. We also had our first fire protection committee, which I felt was very successful, and looking forward to the second one. And then I wanted to mention again that we have in a little over a week, we have our community meetings that are scheduled for March 24th and 25th. And so hopefully that's been put out on social media, and they'll be receiving more information in the mail for that as well. But check our website, and I hope the community can make that. And it's going to be I feel like it's going to be a great, successful event. So, and then moving forward or moving down the page on the report there, we did 3 business inspections, a total of 9 defensible space and residential inspections, and then 8 smoke detector changes. So that completes my report for the month of February.
Thank you, Chief Berkey. Are there any questions or comments from the board? No? Okay. Do we have any public comment? Oh, sorry. Well, I asked you if there was, okay, go
I was
ahead.
waving, yes.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, President Scott.
Sure.
A simple question, and when I saw the great map and the communications on the community awareness meetings, I thought I went to my contacts and I clicked on the Zone Haven because I thought I wanted to see how that matched up, and it ended up I got a message of we currently don't have a relationship in this area. Has the Zone Haven thing changed?
Yes, that's correct. So Zone Haven has been discontinued. But that doesn't mean that the zones have been discontinued. It's just the program itself are being no longer used. So it was the Genesis Protect is what that program itself is not being used, but everything else remains the same. So what we're encouraging people to do is go to the countythereadyslow.org website, and that's where you're going to find all the updated information for your zones, how to sign up for alerts. There's also you can sign up for alertslow.org and reverse 911, all of the appropriate alerts on that website. So again, it didn't go away. It just the platform changed. And then,
Yes,
if you have the app, it'll no longer work. You have to use your web browser on your phone to hit the readyslow.org, and that's
Got it.
where it'll be.
Thanks.
Don't know if they're planning to have an app in the future. That'll be up to County OAS, but I would imagine they are, but
More to come in a couple of weeks, right?
Yep.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Any public comment?
No.
Any public comment in-house? Okay, thank you, Chief Berkey.
thank you.
So I would like to go ahead and rather than do the consent agenda right now, go ahead and go to regular business. Is that going to be a problem for anyone? Okay, great. So let's then start with agenda item 6D. This is the discussion and consideration of alternatives to completion of the Cambria Skate Park. Mr. McElhaney, will you present that agenda item?
Yes, Madam President, and I apologize for my voice. Agenda item 6D, discussion and consideration of alternatives to completion of the Cambria Skate Park project to include location. We already know, most of us already know the background and history of this project. Most recently, we held our strategic planning meeting, and as we were looking at our core areas and supporting objectives, the previous strategic plan had under one of its supporting objectives to complete the skate park project was present final construction estimate to the board for consideration and status of funding to determine whether the project can proceed. That was discussed at the strategic planning meeting. And it was also discussed about some of the funding gaps that exist right now with our federal grant pending to be funded April 1st. So we're in this weird period of the grant about to be funded, yet we're short financially. So that was brought up to the board during strategic planning, and the board directed staff and myself to bring forward alternatives and basically a status update. So with that being said, some history on our current agreement with the Cambria Community Council mostly revolves around our MOU and our agreement. So under the initial MOU, the district committed $178,000 to the skate park. And in that MOU, it says that $178,000 has been committed to the skate park project by the district, and the funds raised by Skate Cambria as administered by the council. There are no other funding sources currently available for the skate park project. So as the GM and staff, although this is a very, there's a lot of passion around this project from the staff perspective and the GM perspective, I've been operating under those parameters. I've been given parameters on how to move this project forward based on board guidance, not only with some of this board, but previous boards. And that's kind of where we are. Further on in the MOU, when it talks about bidding construction phase, because we've got most of all the permitting out of the way, and now we've got the grant. And if we didn't have this funding gap, we could theoretically head into the construction phase once the grant is funded. But in the MOU, as set forth in section 1, the bidding and construction phase of the skate park is contingent upon and will not commence until all of the funds necessary to construct the project have been raised and have been deposited with the district. So again, as a GM and staff, I'm operating within those parameters. If those parameters change, we would be in a different situation. And that also, when we talk about bidding and construction phase, that's also a discussion about when we can go out to RFP. This project started back in 2020 when some of the initial estimates on the skate park came in at $600,000. But what we didn't, previous staff and even those who made those estimates didn't understand is there's a big county piece to this, and the county and what they would require to put the skate park in across the street, they weren't consulted. So a lot of these increase in costs have to do with its current location. When it comes to drainage, setbacks, parking lot, curb and gutter, there's significant additional expenses beyond just the skate park design itself. And that has really started to increase the cost of the overall project. Taking into consideration inflation that we've experienced over the last couple of years, and what we thought was a safety net of 1.2 million with potential construction costs of 800, 900,000. Now we've got engineering estimates and mock bids by some local general contractors that put it right around 1.2, $1.3 million to construct. And that's before we talk about any of the other impacts with recent tariffs overseas, with the new administration. And I don't know how that's affected materials most recently. There's been pre-construction costs associated with this. So the $178,000 and some of the money that the Cambria Community Council has, we've been spending that as a part of getting the project permitted. So that $1.2 million cap has been chipped away at. So what we actually have towards construction is I wouldn't say much less, but we only really have about maybe $1 million if we count the grant and count what's left with the community council. We only have about $1 million, maybe 1.1 to move forward with the project for construction, and that's already fairly short. Additionally, most recently, we've had additional expenses that have creeped up. The federal government reached out to us and said that they need some tribal monitoring during every single day of construction. That's $2,200 a day. We're getting a request for some bids on that. But if construction takes 10 days, I mean, we could be looking at $22,000. Now the grant will reimburse 50% of that, but that added another $10,000 to that funding gap. We also have PG&E, where we might have to drop power from a pole or tunnel it in from the vault. And Mr. Green is working on with PG&E to try to get an estimate on there. But there's a wide range there too in terms of what it'll cost. And unfortunately, we haven't been able to pin down PG&E on what that would cost to get power to the facility, because we do need power to the skate park, to the restroom. So what we keep finding ourselves in is this funding gap that doesn't seem to be lightening up. And I have Mr. Clark here, which I'm hoping we can ask him to step up and have a conversation, because Mr. Clark and I have had some very good conversations about where we are funding wise. And he and I both believe that we're looking at more funding shortages in the future, overruns in the project. You know, we have a very narrow contingency plan for this project. And although Skate Cambria and the council have done a good job with working some of these general contractors that are going to bid the project to do in-kind donations that'll start chipping away at some of the overall cost, we're still looking anywhere between a $70,000, $80,000 funding gap, could go all the way up to 250. The part that complicates it is that we have a grant that is going to fund April 1st, and it never looks good to go this far with a grant and then turn it away. There is an opportunity to accept the grant, not break ground, and just wait, you know, however long it takes for that funding gap to be approved. But as you wait, costs escalate. It's just the way it works. So there is potential that we could sit and wait for 3 years. That's our deadline to complete the project. Mr. Green and I believe that it should only take anywhere that the actual construction phase of the park should only take a couple weeks, 3 weeks. What do you think, Mr. Green? Yeah, 2 or 3 weeks to complete. So in essence, we have a decent amount of years to complete the project. With that said, I'm not sure that funding gap, considering how long it took the Cambria Community Council to raise that amount of money, this poses a significant threat to the project, because this is, a third of what they've raised to date is what we have in a shortfall. And I'll bring up Mr. Clark here in a second to kind of confirm where they are in terms of fundraising. So going backwards, when we talk about alternatives, there is a identical grant to the one that we received for that location. And in theory, we could apply for that grant again, turning down this grant. And there's a potential you can move the skate park to the east park, to the community park, and have it a part of the whole project. I'm agnostic about where the park goes. I really have no feeling one way or another, other than I was directed by the board to see if we can complete this project. And I believe that the project is threatened right now because of the funding gap. So I was asked to come up with alternatives. There's a potential that it could be placed on the East Ranch, but that comes with complications too. There's a lot of unknowns on the East Ranch, floodplain, flood zones. We don't have engineering and designs. There's setback issues. And then even if we are awarded the grant, we're still in the same position we are today. That grant is a 50-50 match. So that part could be pretty expensive on the East Ranch, considering all the things that have to go into constructing that park. But we'd still have to come up with a 50% match. So we would kind of be doing it all over again with the current location. So I think some of our alternatives are keep it in the same location, perhaps put a deadline on how long we want to wait to see if the funding gap can be closed. Do we want to take the full 3 years and accept the grant and run the risk of, unfortunately having to give the grant back? Turn down the grant and investigate applying for the new grant to include the skate park in the community park plan, or obviously wave the white flag on the skate park entirely. And I know that's not popular, but I'm here to provide options. And that's really the genesis of this entire piece. I know the public is passionate about this project, but from a staff perspective, I've been given these very narrow parameters in which to operate to complete this project. And I'm trying to be fiscally responsible and hold the line to which you as the board have directed me, in terms of, we're not going to go past the 178. And this is all we've committed to the project. I would like to feel the CCSD did their part by securing this grant. Staff and myself have spent at least 600 hours since we were awarded the grant just on the red tape of getting it finalized. I mean, hours and hours. So we would love to see the project completed, but I am bound by the parameters to which you set. If the board decides to change those parameters, or to pull money from the general fund, or to close some gaps, of course, that is that's a board prerogative, and staff will execute your prerogative as soon as directed. But with that, I'd like to bring up Mr. Clark if he's available, and he can maybe confirm some of our concerns about project overruns, going over budget, some of the funding issues, where they are funding wise and fundraising wise, because we do have some concerns about the narrow contingency we do have. And once we break ground and start construction on this, the CCSD is on the hook to complete it. As you know, we encumbered $746,000 of our general fund reserves. So we are on the hook to complete this. So if there is overages on this project, it will come from the general fund. But there's really no way around it. So with that said, I'll turn it over to Mr. Clark.
Well, thank you.
Welcome, Mr. Clark.
The numbers that we have correspond with the district numbers. Ms. Fritz and I got together in January, and we balanced to the dollar on our concepts. Presently, we're looking at on a minimum of underfunding of probably $81,000. And that's only if we spent $15,000 on the PG&E, which we spent at the schoolhouse. And it can go up from there. It could go as high as another $150,000. So I think the range that we're looking at today is 81,000 to 150. Speaking with Ms. Amade yesterday, we feel we can raise 100 to 150,000 in about 6 months. We can raise the 40 to 50,000 in 3 or 4 weeks. But for the large amount, it would take a little longer. We presently have $309,000 dedicated to the project. And we have another $65,000 in the maintenance fund. It's grown, we've invested, grown from 62 to 65. So altogether, we have about $374,000 we're holding for Skate Cambria.
Thank you. Did you have anything more you wanted to say?
Overruns.
Right, we did. I mean, the problem is the construction costs have come in right at the 1.2. That's what the grant's for. We totally missed the pre-construction costs. So we're in that 125,000 today on the numbers we know, plus the PG&E. So that's the number we're looking at. But we pretty much agree. We're close to permitting. We're still, I owe you some money on invoice number 7. We have not figured in yet how much it will cost to put the bricklaying or the fundraising bricks on the wall. And then we have the PG&E costs. And now we just got the travel allowance, but we just don't know what we don't know coming from the county. We started at a little over 600,000. The cost has doubled. We've been able to raise the money. Ms. Amadei has the unique ability to raise the funds. But I would say 6 months, 9 months top.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Board members. Yes.
First, I just want to compliment our general manager for clearly articulating the alternatives before us to enable a healthy discussion.
Yes, Director Dean.
Okay, I'm seeing variables here on what the gap is. Can we fine tune that a little bit? But I think we need to consider the higher cost of PG&E because even if PG&E doesn't cover that and come to that, there's still going to be overruns. So let's see what is the gap, including if PG&E is 150,000, including the tribal oversight, those things that weren't considered before. I also want to reiterate that the staff has spent 600 to 700 hours on this. It was donated in the beginning when we first started this project, as well as legal counsel Tim Carmel and David Hirsch have donated all of their time with meeting with the ad hoc committee, with meeting with staff, with writing the MOUs, all of that. All that time has been donated. So I think it's pretty obvious that we were trying to get this project going, that we were in favor of this project. So, but I want to know what the gap is. If you say it's 150,000 for PG&E, if you include the tribal oversight and some of those last minute things that we just found out about. And then I want to see if Ms. Amadei is confident that she can raise that money in a timely manner. I think we need to have a deadline. I know we have an audience full of people who want to build this park, and I want to know that they are willing to help raise the money.
Can definitely look into that gap. We're waiting, Mr. Green and I are waiting for basically a response from PG&E. It is going to be difficult to really know how short we are down to the penny. We'll have an estimate once we hear back from PG&E. But to your point, there will be overruns to some extent on the project. And I'll probably turn it over to Mr. Green because he's much more familiar with this, but there always seems to be something that happens once you open up that earth, especially in Cambria. You tend to find some things that you weren't expecting. And so all staff is trying to do is to make you fully aware that this could go beyond just our initial shortfall. But Mr. Green?
While I'm not agnostic to the location, I do like the Main Street location for the skate park. However, the construction cost is what the real hindrance here. While it's not a popular statement, we have half the environmental already performed on the East West Ranch right now, and construction costs would be considerably less there. I know it's not a popular alternative, but that is something to take into consideration as well.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Yes,
Yeah.
Director Gray.
Yeah, thank you, President Scott. Yeah, I wanted to get just a further clarification on the grant award date and what that means, because obviously we have, it comes between this meeting and the next meeting. So if we decide today to postpone, consider, basically study it further before making a decision, you said April 1st as the date. What happens? Is there the chance of getting an extension or any sort of action that would not require us to make a decision today as whether to accept the grant or not?
Director Gray, I believe we're too far into the grant process. We've already accepted it.
Okay.
It's just the funding part.
Definitely. I mean, you're talking about the funding, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
We've already kind of crossed that bridge, the
Mhm.
point of no return, so to
Yeah,
speak.
mhm.
Now, it doesn't mean we can't turn away the grant. Essentially, we would be turning, we're not going to take any of the money and submit for reimbursements. The way that, and Mr. Green can correct me if I'm wrong, but we will submit project costs, money spent to that, and they will reimburse it. It goes back into the general fund to unencumber some of those reserves that we did do. We won't be able to do that on any of our spent costs or sunk costs until the matching funds are in, so we actually can break ground and start recouping some of those monies. So the grant essentially will just sit there as quote unquote funded
Mhm.
at their level, but we won't be submitting for any reimbursements.
Mhm.
However, there will be no ability to apply for the next grant, for the East Ranch to include the skate park, because the skate park's already included in this grant. So that option will be off the table.
So we would formally have to turn down, I mean, we would have to turn down the grant at some point to apply for a new grant.
Or
Yeah.
turn it down if it includes the current scope. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So if we would have to turn this down if we wanted to include the skate park in the next version of the community park plan.
Mhm. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Director Farmer.
Personally, I'd rather wait and hear what the members of the public, our constituents, have to say before I say anything further. However, being the person that I am, I tend to think, and obviously the financing is very important, but it's a matter of faith as to what is right for our community, for the children and the adults in our community, and the vibration that would take place if the energy were across the street, visible to locals and visitors alike. And I just think about when this project first started and the youth that are now, they've graduated high school. Some of them are in college, graduated college, and the passion and enthusiasm that they had and just the energy that took place at that time. And I'd like to see that energy continue at that location for years to come. That's how I feel. And like I say, to me, it's as much a matter of faith that all will come together as needed, financially and otherwise. That's my sense of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farmer. So I do think that we generally take public comment from people who are here. But since Ms. Amadei has been instrumental in this project, I'm wondering if we should take her comment first because she has a time frame. Is she online? Okay. So let's go ahead and take Ms. Amadei's public comment.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you so much. I'm settled and I'm going to try to do this the best I can, and hopefully you won't hear background noise. So I'm going to go ahead and read my public comment. But first, I'd like to thank everyone that's there, everybody that's listening, the board, the time that's been put into this project, and the very just considerate conversation that's going on in regards to this very valuable infrastructure for our community and our kids. I'm writing to express my strong support for keeping the skate park at its original designated location in Cambria. The decision to place the skate park there was made after careful consideration with the backing of both the Pros Commission and the CCSD Board in September of 2021. If the parcel had been deemed unfeasible by engineering professionals or other government agencies, Skate Cambria would not have continued pursuing pre-construction costs. In addition, any and all exemptions regarding parking requirements, storm basins, environmental factors, various setbacks, and restrooms have already been vetted and approved by the county. Furthermore, the suggestion that the project is cost prohibitive or that concerns over a funding gap threaten its viability is deeply insulting to the tireless efforts of our fundraising team. For the past 4 months, we have been actively finalizing engineering estimates so that we can complete funding for the skate park and come to terms with the district on a fund for its future maintenance. We are fully committed to bringing this project to fruition for our community. We look forward to collaborating with the district, receiving grant funding, LCWF, and building a skate park on Main Street that will ensure this parcel remains a park in perpetuity. This project will serve as a prime example of how private fundraising, grants, and a special district can work together to provide critical infrastructure for our town. Let's finish what we started. We promise the kids that their voices matter and that hard work and persistence can lead to success. Together, we can make this a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Ebony. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and call people who are in-house. And I just was handed a stack, so I don't know who came in first, but I'm just going to go down the line. So the first one that I have is for Chelsea Foster.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to use the time wisely. Thanks for having us as always. I want to talk about the amount that's outstanding. There's been a lot of chatter on the message boards and in town, and there's some misinformation going around. I want to clear that up. We are absolutely not afraid to raise more money. I don't know how much more certain we can make that clear to you guys. Anytime anybody's ever said, raise more money, you say jump, we say how far. And not only do we meet that goal, we exceed it every single time. We have a lot of people over the last 5 years that have been aligned with this project on good faith, and we owe it to them, along with the kids and this community, to follow up with this project. And to echo what Julie just said, that area was slated and signed off for this location. So there's really no dispute, East Ranch or not. That's where it should go. Kids need to be visible in town and safe. So we're in a partnership with CCSD, and that's how we continue to want to bridge this relationship to keep working and, holding hands together and working together. So we want to clear up the misinformation about the gap. That is not an issue. We have people right now that want to give us money, but we're not going to keep doing that when there's all this, chatter that's happening. We want to know that we're all moving forward together in synchronicity. So with the 178 that we've had, and also the 5 years in good faith, let's not forget about inflation that's happened. That this 5-year drag has made the project cost way more. As it was mentioned earlier, costs have doubled. And our kids, we've raised that money every time, whether it's a pancake breakfast or, we've gone countywide, concerts, all kinds of things that are down south. This project has an international following at this point. So what we're really talking about right now, we've got a little elephant in the room, is that we don't want to have to put a lens on the inner workings as to why we're even in this debacle. Because if it's a PG&E box or a bathroom or whatever has been thrown our way, we've met it, and we're going to continue doing that. We're not afraid. So on that note, I know there's a lot of people here today, and there's a lot more that wanted to be here. We've got kids that are in school. We've got the scholarship thing going today. And there's a lot of people that are waiting to see you guys continue on with the strong partnership and let us do this location. It is going to bring only goodness to this town. Skateboarding is one of the only sports in the world that includes art and culture outside of the athleticism. So keep that in mind, because we'll be giving a gift to town. And that's what we want to see. And that's what we're here to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next person is Shara Tatham.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I am not the public speaker in my family, but I'm going to get up here on behalf of the skate park and Cyrus. So let me introduce myself. My name is Shara Tatham. I am Cyrus Tatham's mom. He is the president of the skate park committee. He's currently working in a remote area in Colorado for 3 months and has limited internet connection. Otherwise, he would be here at this meeting. I did talk with him this week, and he sent in his public comments. So you should have that in front of you. Just in case you have not yet had a chance to read that, he is asking you guys to move forward, accepting the grant, building at the Main Street location. As Chelsea said, a lot of our board members are not here today. We've talked about this in past board meetings. It is a work school day. Julie's on a plane, is going to see her daughter. Cyrus is in Colorado. Eli Lynn, Jack Francis, who are on our board today, they are at work. I'm sorry, they're on our board. They are at work today. Got a letter from Eli that he could not get in on time, so I do have that if any of you would like to see that today. Dane Volz is a senior at the high school. He's at the senior interviews today, so he couldn't be here. Viviana is at school today. Chelsea and Champ drove up from LA this morning to be here. I am a business owner in town. I had to pay an employee to be there for me. So I want you to know this cost my time and my money. Shows you guys how important this project is to us. Jeff Smith and Brett Batella both are at work also. So I just want to let you guys know we are all vested. We've talked about this meeting today. It's very important to us. We've been working on this project since Cyrus knocked on CCS doors in 2020, asking for answers as a 14-year-old kid. Why was a skate park taken down? So we believe this is a grassroots movement. I just kind of want to remind you guys where we came from. So it's a grassroots movement to rebuild a skate park for our town's youth. We have raised a lot of money with donations, grants, the LWCF grant. I believe the total is about 1.2 million. I also am here today as a local business owner of 13 years. I own 2 boutiques in town. My grandparents lived here, bought a house in 1969. So we are vested in this community, and I'm vested in the youth of this community. I also have been a volunteer for the Youth Collective, which is a collection of, it's a youth group that is a collection of churches that participate in having children and youth at this place. I've been volunteering on a weekly basis there for 8 years. So I'm telling you that just so that I want there to be an understanding that I am vested in our youth in this community. It feels a little strange to me that we are re-looking at the site location. I understand the financial implications. I agree with Chelsea, what she said. Skate Cambria is not afraid at all to raise the additional funds. Feels like a great challenge. Again, we've shown a great ability to raise the funds. We haven't pushed hard the last couple of years, obviously, because there's question of, is this going to get done?
I just want to say, please summarize. Thank
Okay,
you, Ms.
you got it.
Tatham.
Just want to say we are asking you guys to please receive the 600 grant on our behalf. Please act on our behalf and move forward with having the Cambria Skate Park at the location on Main Street. We are committed until it's finished on Main Street. We are committed to raise the funds. We're committed to push hard for that. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next person is Margie Perez Sesser.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Margie Perez Sesser. I'm retired early childhood educator from West College. I also serve on the CAPSLO board on their finance committee, and I also am their child development consultant. I am also the grandmother of Vivi Ponce McLean, who I have your picture in front, who with Champ has been working on this project for a long time. She was 7 when she became a representative of Skate Cambria, and now she is 11. Some of you might have seen her picture also in Mark Decter's um, community pictures. And there's a picture of her looking kind of glum, and she's thinking about what it looks like for Skate Cambria. Now, our general manager has said that there's this gap. I'm going to tell you, as a member of CAPSLO, this happened to us when we built Prado. Costs go up. We raise more money. I am totally dedicated. So is all the people that are here today. We're dedicated to doing that. The amount of money he is talking about is nothing for us because we have that dedication. Like Chelsea said, we have state presence. We have national presence. Also, our kids are skating all over in other places because they can't skate here. But, you know, moving it to East Ranch is totally impractical. Getting another grant in this political climate, you all know the grants that we have already had funded, like with CAPSLO, we're already worried because we're getting money taken away from us. So no more grants are going to be, that is not realistic. That's about as realistic as what our GM said to one of our community leaders. It's about as likely as us, you know, getting a lottery ticket and winning lotto. That was a direct quote from you, Mr. GM. So we would have to start all over. We don't want to do that. This is such a small grant gap that can be done. If we had said this on Prado would have never been built. In fact, if you don't know, we're expanding now. We're building apartments next door. This happens all the time whenever you're doing a big project. So some people may not have had this experience of doing a big project like this, but costs do go up and you go with it. You don't turn money back to the federal government ever because you will never get it back. Our kids are depending on us. You might have seen Vivi out there with the other kids and camp, and they're asking donations. We had tourists that came to town and said, this is a great thing you guys are all doing. We've had so much support from the skateboard community. You have no idea how strong they are. I mean, we're doing Olympics now. I mean, who would have thought? And girls are also a part of that.
Ms. Perez, could you just summarize, please?
We would like to have your support in carrying this forward and knowing that we in the community have the passion to make this funding gap happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I also have a letter that I would like to do for 3 minutes from Jill Southern, who is our superintendent of schools, who asked me to read her letter for her. So with your permission,
Yes,
dear
I
Cam,
did signify that if she changed who it is that's speaking and she has their actual words, that I would allow that to happen.
okay, this letter is from Jill, our superintendent. I am writing to express my strong support for the proposed skate park at its originally designated location in downtown Cambria. I understand that decisions regarding downtown planning and community spaces are complex and involve various considerations, but I believe this project offers tremendous benefits for our youth and broader community. As both a former principal at Cambria Grammar School and the current superintendent of Coast Unified School District, I've had the opportunity to speak with many of our community members, parents, and students about the need for productive, healthy activities for our youth. The downtown location is central, visible, and accessible to both locals and visitors. It provides a safe and engaging space for people to be active, young people to be active while contributing the vibrancy of our downtown area. The visibility of the skate park encourages this to be a clean and safe environment. Additionally, having the skate park in this location supports local businesses by encouraging longer visits from families, both locals and tourists. The students I've spoken to are genuinely excited about the prospect of having a skate park in the heart of town, and I believe this project will be an investment in their well-being in their future. It is important to note that the necessary permits have already been secured and considerable work have been completed to bring this project to fruition. Moving this skate park to another location will result in significant delays, additional costs, and a loss of progress already made. In my role, I frequently engage with educational partners about the need for positive outlets for our young people. The skate park addresses that need, offering a safe space for students to engage in productive activities. Please, I'd like to thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely, Jill Southern.
Thank you.
Other one up.
Do you have someone else you're going to speak
Yes,
for?
the president of the PTA. But it's on my phone, so I have to try to get my. To CCSD Executive Board, my name is Agatha Dieprich, and I am it's really hard to read. And I am the president of the PTA. I'm also the mother of 2 children in the school, and I am concerned about any changes that would further delay the building of the Cambria Cambria Skate Park, including changes to another planned location off of Main Street. Your staff reporting on the agenda reports errors regarding the skate park and gives an unfair advantage for fellow Cambrians to fully understand the situation. I want to add that Julie Amadei is a successful business owner, dedicated civil servant who has served on our school district's board of trustees, among other things. It is her knowledge and experience and her true heart for the needs of our youth that has pulled this project through the many hoops placed before her. She has already seen and planned for the concerns you have laid out. The project is number 1 on the county board supervisors meeting from finalizing, which we will also be meeting with Bruce Gibson before that time. Please do not be the ones to delay or even harm the completion. Sincerely, Agatha Diependrecht.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next person to speak is Champ Clark.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm speaking on behalf of everyone with Skate Cambria, all of the kids that are going to visit Cambria. I'm going to be complete. There's not much to do here for the youth. And I think the skate park would definitely help a lot of people here and a lot of kids that don't have a lot to do. I just really believe it would help and help me whenever I come to visit here and whenever I'm in town. I also don't have much to do and I love skateboarding.
Okay. Thank you.
Champ, if you don't mind, buddy, how old are you?
How old are you?
you?
Oh, I'm 11 years old.
Right on. Thank you, buddy.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Just a little over 11.
All right. All right. So the next person is Tina Dickinson. Oh, I told you I just got handed a stack. So. Mhm.
Thank you, President Scott
You're welcome.
and board. To say that this item was not a shock will be recognized in the scarf I'm wearing today. This is Edward Norton, the Scream. I have supported a new skate park for the youth of our community for a very long time. I believe this project is on the cusp of becoming a reality. The project has been approved by the County Planning Department and the County Planning Commission, and now awaits approval by the Board of Supervisors. To do anything other than approve the Main Street location, 1043 Main Street, would leave you all with the most disgusting and horrible legacy I think that this town would probably have ever seen because of the involvement of the community, Skate Park Cambria, and the efforts made on the part of the CCSD and the grant funding. What I want to bring to your attention, though, is that while the district on May 25th, 2023, passed Resolution 31, 2023 for a matching fund grant through the California Department of Parks and Recreation, The board voted on that 4-0. Director Thomas was absent. The rest of you all that sit here in front of me voted, except Michael Thomas, voted for it. Please explain why a press release from the California Department of Parks and Recreation addressed to GM McElhaney on December 4th, 2023, announcing a matching grant of $600,000 for the Cambria Skate Park was not included as an attachment. Since the funding of $600,000 represents the largest single funding source for the project and was referenced in the report, it absolutely should have been included in this agenda item. It is on the district's website, and I'm going to provide my comments for public record with the link to the website. That should have been in there, along with the application, which was in there. I questioned the reserve estimation on page 230, where it states that as of June 30th, the general fund reserves were $2,500,000. Additional language states, quote, "The reserve estimation is an estimate based upon information known up to this date. It is included to help inform the decision-making process and will fluctuate based upon actual activities. Please identify what the current reserve estimation is and what effect it could have on the reserve estimation." The press release included the following words, and I will just about end with this quote from the press release for the grant.
Thank you.
Quote, "Building a new skate park at this location, 1043 Main Street, will restore a critical public asset and recreational opportunity lost when the old park was removed and is a high priority for the community of Cambria. Beyond building a skate park, this project will create a youth-friendly space in Cambria where people of all backgrounds and skill levels can gather and connect."
Thank you.
I'm not done yet.
Well, it's 3.5
All right,
minutes.
I have a couple of sentences.
Okay.
That's all. These words resound heartily with me, and I'll bet our youth and community would happily agree. I'm on the verge of choking up here after hearing Champ and the others. This is disgusting. I'm asking the board to do what's right, fair, and just for our community, not what General Manager McElhaney wants. And
Thank you, Ms.
I want
Dixon.
this project
Thank you, Ms. Dixon.
approved. Thank you.
The next person is Christine Heinrichs.
Yes, Christine Heinrichs in Cambria. Build this skate park. Thanks to Julie, Chelsea, Shara, Margie, Jill, Tina, and all the rest of the people that are here and that have advocated so eloquently for it. I endorse all that they have said. Every other community has a skate park. Why does Cambria CSD find it impossible to build one? How does the district mismanage its funds so poorly that Cambria cannot have a skate park? In the strategic planning, Mr. McElhaney also claimed that Cambria can't afford maintenance on its tripper trash containers, or weeding the medians hasn't been done for years. Why can't Cambria afford basic amenities that other communities enjoy? Does Cambria need a forensic audit to determine where its money is going?
Ms. Heinrichs, I think you're off subject, so please limit it to the agenda item.
I'm done.
Thank you. The next person is Diane Brooke. Okay, please come up. Thank you.
I'm Diane Brooke, and I have lived in Cambria almost 44 years, raised my 2 sons here. And just to give you a little background on this particular location of the skate park, I was the one that got it originally situated there. I was the director of the community center and youth center. And before that, some of the behind the scenes stalwarts of this community, Sarah Blair Field in the audience here, Marcel Bakula, and a number of other parents had a shipping container in the parking lot of the Vets Hall parking lot. Volunteers had to drag ramps out and stuff. And then finally one of the parents said, "Hey, why don't you do something about this? the CCSD owns this. And so I approached the CCSD, that's 22 years ago.
Wow.
Something like that, maybe, Harry, I don't remember, but without even the likes of Julie Amadei and some of the other go-getters in this audience here, we were able to raise the funds to get it paved, fenced, build the original skate ramps and all of this kind of stuff. So when I hear that it's just about a gap in funding, why you want to move this park to this other location, that I agree with everybody in the audience. That's kind of nonsense. We have no problem getting that. That really is not a very good excuse. You know, there's a lot of other funding faux pas that we've seen, you know, in the community with the CCSD. And I think that this would do a great deal to restore faith in the CCSD. I think it would do a great deal to remind children that they do belong here, that we do respect them. I appreciate the 600 hours or whatever it was that people said that, you know, volunteered. I myself probably put at least 150 hours in it, and I know others who did that originally. And I called skate parks, municipalities from San Diego to Vancouver, Washington, 25 of them into Nevada. And every one of them said, don't put it tucked away. Do not tuck it away. Put it where everybody can see. We have kids see whether we're watching them, that we're appreciating them. And that was one of the main points of why we put it there. And I know that that still holds true today. I think we need to do this service for our children and for our community. And like I said, I think it would do a great deal in restoring the reputation of this body here. And it's just the right thing to do. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next person we have is Adam Babcock, and this is the last person that I'm going to take because we have a presentation that was scheduled for 11. So at that point, the board will make a decision about whether to continue with further comments. And hopefully you'll be willing to stick around to make more comments later, but we do have to do this presentation any minute now. So this person is Adam Babcock. Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Adam Babcock. I'm a local pastor of Cambria Vineyard Church, and I speak on behalf of our, I would say, large community of faith here. I'm also, full disclosure, very new to Cambria. I've only been here 6 months. One of the things that brought us here is that we have 2 teenagers, and I saw the love and care this community shows for young people. And the word that I just want to remind you with that actually came up for this fine young lady who brought up earlier is the word legacy. I think here we have an opportunity to leave a legacy for generations to come in this community. And I would hope that the board would see that and see the opportunity that we have for the future to continue to love and bring young people and families here to Cambria, and this skate park will help do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I will give Wayne Gracie, how long do you have to speak? Like quickly? Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Wayne Gracie, I've been
Yes.
here probably 45 years, and I just wanted to comment, I totally support the skate park. I've raised 2 kids here, and they're now in their 40s. My son, 44, he skateboarded here when he was a kid. He skateboarded in the legal spots and probably some illegal spots back then. But I wanted to comment with Lady Tie-Dye here. I was one of the first ones to help build the portable skate ramps and half pipes that were stored out here in the parking lot. And we would drag them out every weekend and put them together, and the kids would come and skate. And then I was part of the crew that built the first wooden skate ramps over at where the skate park is now. And I just think, you know, it's a really good thing for our community. But I recently have been introduced to what's called pump track. And a lot of you guys, probably skaters, know what a pump track is, but you guys might not. And I can't really describe it other than an undulating concrete, looks like a pool a little bit, but it accommodates a lot of age groups. The skate park we're going to have over here may be limiting to kind of older kids. There's kind of a hierarchy in the skate park world where older kids kind of take over sometimes the skate and the skate parks, and they kind of dominate it. So it kind of limits the younger kids coming in, the inexperienced ones. And I think a pump track, and I'm all for the skate park here, but I think if you guys could consider in the new park area to think about what's called this pump track. In addition to the skate park we have here, it would accommodate younger people. They go in with scooters, with bikes, with skateboards, with skates and all ages. I saw there's one in Paso Robles. I saw kids, 2 or 3 years old to 14, and they just ride around this pump track. And they had a beginner one and they had an advanced one. But anyway, I'll finish up with saying I totally support the skate park. I think you should consider another maybe skate facility in the new park area that you're thinking about building. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gracie. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to refer to our district council, Mr. Carmel. What I'd like to do, and tell me if I can, is I'd like to allow the presentation by Stillwater, because they're waiting and they've been waiting already several minutes online. We will not be making a decision during this time. As soon as this presentation is over, we will resume this agenda item. Is that something we can do?
That's perfectly acceptable, Madam President.
Okay, thank you very much. So wait around so you'll see what the discussion is from the board members. Thank you. So Mr. McElhaney, please present this agenda item.
Thank you, Madam President. Agenda item 6A. Discussion and consideration of approval of agreement for consultant services with Stillwater Sciences for the in-stream flow study for Santa Rosa Creek and adoption of resolution 17-2025, amending the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget. Preliminary estimates for this project would be $176,000 based on the tasks and deliverables. We recently completed an in-stream flow study that included San Simeon and Van Gordon Creeks. And after discussion with staff, Resources and Infrastructure Committee, and some of the comments that have made by, the Coastal Commission about when we draft from the Santa Rosa aquifers during the dry season, we thought it would be prudent and a show of good faith to have a similar in-stream flow study for the Santa Rosa Creeks. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Green, if he wants to fill in any gaps.
Okay.
And again, there's no regulatory compliance that is requiring us to do this. This is just kind of out of good faith, and I'll let them describe more of the scope and so forth, but this will kind of report on any impacts that we have during pumping and what seasonality that has. So this will be a lot of general, true in-field knowledge for us to gain from our diversions in the Santa Rosa Creek. So with that, I'll bring up Ken and Ethan from Stillwater. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for being patient.
Esteemed members of the board and community.
And your name?
I'm Ken Jarrett. I'm with Stillwater Sciences. The district has reached out to us to perform an in-stream flow study for the Santa Rosa Creek Basin. And really the goal of this study is to look at opportunities and constraints to inform district pumping operations in the basin. And we're really going to be focusing on effects to federally listed steelhead, which are the main focal species in the watershed. And what we're going to be doing is, first off, we want to understand the influence that pumping from the groundwater aquifer has on surface flows in the stream, and also identify what range of stream flows are most sensitive to pumping operations and how that relates to steelhead habitat in Santa Rosa Creek. Next slide, please. Sorry, could you go to the one more past this? Okay, so the way to look at this is to first off assess groundwater pumping operations and look at what influence pumping operations have on the surface flows. We're working with a expert in the area, Gus Yates, who's done a lot of work in the watershed, looking at the groundwater basin conditions. And a big part of this is doing a pump test where we run the district pumps in Santa Rosa Creek Basin at maximum capacity for about a week, and we look at how that affects stream flows. And then we turn off those pumps for about a week and see if there's a detection in changes in stream flows. And then we're going to go out and look at fish habitat conditions using standard approach called the IFIM, which is it's a modeling effort where you look at fish habitat conditions as it relates to flow. So steelhead habitat varies based on velocity and water depth. And the IFIM is your standard method for doing that. It's approved by the agencies, and it's what we did on the San Simeon Creek watershed as well. And our study area is going to focus mainly around the lower part of the groundwater basin. So the aquifer under Santa Rosa Creek extends essentially from the upstream end of the lagoon, about 2 miles upstream of the high school. And pumping is centered around the main pumps located at the high school. And we're going to be really focused on this section of stream and looking at the effects of flows on or pumping on the surface flows and fish habitat there. So this is the area that pumping is most likely to influence. But once we get contracted in place, we're going to start off by doing the pump test. We want to look at pumping effects during the spring period as the flows are receding, because that's typically the most sensitive period for steelhead. And we want to start off early on in this process to get input from agencies. So we're going to establish a technical advisory committee that's comprised of CDFW, Coastal Commission, and other local and regional agencies that have interest in the results of this study, so we can get advice on our study approach and methods. And then as flows drop down, we're going to go out and do our habitat surveys and look at the creek within the study area. And then we'll start doing our survey site identification in the rainy season, because we need to target specific flows for the IFIM study. So we want to see conditions over a range of flow conditions, and those typically happen when it rains and following rain events. So that's going to be next winter. And then after that, we'll start on putting the report together and get a draft out next spring. And that's our overall approach, and I'm ready to take any questions if people.
Thank you, Mr. Jarrett. Do the board members have any questions? Yes, Director Farmer.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Jarrett, thank you so much for this presentation and for the work that you've done for the district in the past. Just to clarify a couple of things. First off, you're talking about this time frame, and it says here in your schedule, you're talking about winter of 2026. You just said 2025. So I just wanted to clarify that we're talking about almost 2 years from now.
It will be next winter.
So 25.
Yeah, roughly December 2025 through March 2026.
Okay, March of 2020. All right, thank you. And also, how will you be determined with regard to the population of the steelhead trout and Santa Rosa Creek? I think with regard to the San Simeon Creek, the population has been very limited, in recent years. What would you anticipate with regard to the number of steelhead that are going up Santa Rosa Creek? Do you have any idea?
Well, this study is going to look at habitat for steelhead and not the population itself. So it's going to look at the habitat that supports the steelhead population and flows that allow fish passage and allows fish to migrate into and out of the system. So we're really looking at what's going to support steelhead, but we're not looking at the actual numbers of steelhead.
All right, thank you.
Any other? Yes, Vice President Thomas.
Yeah, and thank you. My question, I'm trying to understand. Yeah, I have the impression that this is to assess the effects of the pumping from the groundwater during the dry season, and and I and I think I hear that the testing is going to be conducted during the winter. I'm trying to understand those. You know, can you help
Yeah.
me
Yeah,
figure
that's
that
a
out?
good question. Well, what we need to do for our survey for the IFIM, it's an approach to model habitat conditions over a range of flows. And what we do is we need to get out there and measure habitat conditions at 3 different flow events. So we need a really low flow, a medium flow, and a high flow. And then we can model in between that. So it gives us a whole range of flows and how the habitat responds to those different flows. And we have to do that. We found that in the wintertime, when it's when it's raining, it gives us more opportunity to hit different flow events. If we go out in the summer, we're pretty much limited to one flow condition. And we need to get that range so we can understand in between different flow levels what the habitat does.
Thank you.
I have a question. So in our previous in-stream flow studies, we've looked at more than just steelhead, and your document, your scope of work and budget talks about that you'll only be looking at steelhead. Is there a reason you're not looking at any other endangered species?
Yeah, well, at this time, we're not going for permits. And what we found is that really the most limiting species is steelhead because they spend all their life in the water. They're very sensitive to changes in flow conditions, and there's really good information on habitat needs for steelhead. So we want to really focus in on them. That's going to give us the best information and really understand the influence of pumping on sensitive species in the watershed.
Okay.
That's why we're
Thank you, Mr. Jarrett. Any other questions from the board members? Okay, so let's take public comment, and you might want to just stay there because someone might ask a question. Is there anyone in-house? I do have one form from Ms. Dickinson.
Tina Dickinson, I find this to be incredibly amazing that the district has never wanted to do an in-stream flow study on Santa Rosa Creek. The last one that was done by Stillwater on behalf of the county, I believe in 2014. So why now? 178,000 when the general manager just said a few minutes ago or an hour ago that there was no money available to get the skate park completed because of a lack of funds. But yet we have this in front of us that absolutely makes me question why you're doing it. And to have an in-stream flow study based on my understanding from other in-stream flow studies, including Sansamine Creek, Pico Creek, et cetera, was that it's to take a year so that you can cover all of the areas during various climate conditions and the water that is presented in the creek during different times of the year. Makes no sense to just be doing it from December through March when we're most likely to get the most rainfall. So that makes absolutely no sense. But what does make sense to somebody as myself, who's really paid attention for 20 years to what's going on in this district, is one word: growth. That's what comes to mind. And I'll bet you that eventually we will find out that that's exactly what is in the real agenda for this item. Because to only be looking at steelhead, but not looking at steelhead, looking at the habitat for steelhead. I mean, really? Really, really, really? So I guess in addition to my years of finding steelhead in San Simeon Creek, for which I've sent all of the agencies related to, and including CSD, photos of steelhead. Last year was the only year there were no steelhead, but I just got a report from Santa Barbara. 200 steelhead were captured. And you may have heard of this, I don't know. And it is such great news. And so I will be out there in San Simeon Creek and Santa Rosa doing the best I can to see, and Cal Fish and Wildlife here in SLO, to see if there are steelhead present. But we were reduced from 518 acre feet a year to 218 acre feet a year. And my other question is, will you be noticing or notifying the residents on 2 miles up on Santa Rosa Creek Road, the ranchers, the residents of this study before it takes place? And that's a question for you and or the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to do a short answer, either one of you?
I can answer a few questions. I think that I heard a question about the timing of our measurements, and then also the monitoring, looking at habitat versus the population. And yeah, for the population versus the habitat monitoring, what we found is that it's really important to understand how the district is influencing habitat conditions, because if there's not suitable habitat, then you don't have the availability for the population to grow or thrive. And so that's really what we're interested in, is really the district potentially has influence over habitat conditions, and that's what we want to focus on. There's a lot of things that come into play with the population itself, ocean conditions and climate conditions, and things that are out of the district's control. So we're really focusing on what district has control over and how that influences the habitat. We want to make sure that there's good habitat to support the population. That's what we're focusing on.
Thank you.
And President Scott, to the other
Yes.
point that was made, those are two entirely different funds. One is enterprise, one is general funds.
Right.
So even if I wanted to move some of the money from Stillwater's project over the skate park project, I couldn't do it. It's enterprise funds, general fund projects.
Thank you very much. Yes, Director
Hey,
Gray.
President Scott, yes, I had a question about the 2014 study, because I remember that was done too. How is this different, or is it sounds like it's a little different from the 2014. Maybe you can explain the difference between the two.
Yeah, this is quite a bit different from 2014. Basically, the 2014 study looked at environmental water demand flows at I think there were 2 points in Santa Rosa Creek that we went out and we looked at flow conditions, and then we modeled how much flow is needed to sustain the population. And it was kind of a very quick and preliminary assessment. And what we concluded was that for management purpose and water operations, a more thorough in-stream flow study would be required to inform that. And so that was the first step. This is the more focused study that we're doing now.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other in-house comments, public comments? Anybody online comments?
No.
Okay. So are we ready for discussion at the board level or a motion?
I had a point. Yeah, I had a little discussion to offer, I guess.
Okay.
Thank you. And this is, it does look like, since this is, and Mr. Green noted, we're not actually required to do this at this point for any sort of permit or process. It's not part, in other words, this is not related to the CDP for the WRF. However, and board members know this too, the Coastal Commission has long had an issue with pumping from Santa Rosa Creek. And we've, I don't know how this, I mean, I can ask maybe the staff about this, because I know we had a notice of violation letter about, I don't know, it was about 2 or 3 years ago now. basically bringing up the point that we had actually, we had kind of our status of our Santa Rosa Creek pumping is a little bit, in the Coastal Commission's eyes, a little bit tentative because we're supposed to only do it during times when we have to, when it's an emergency or whatever. We've been doing it anyway. So it's an issue with them as far as the impact, our impact, even if, not connected to any permit we're getting. And I think I don't see us want to kind of repeat the mistake we made in San Simeon of putting off doing an in-stream flow study for years and years and years, thinking it was quite a bit of money and it wasn't necessary. Then we finally had to do it anyway, and it slowed things down on the permit. This is sort of a preventive thing for dealing with an issue that will come up if we, at some point it's going to come up again, our water use of Santa Rosa. And I think it's just good anticipation of potential problems down the road and then dealing with them in advance. I don't know if any staff wants to comment on that or not. That's my impression.
I can comment, Director Gray, and then I know Mr. Green can comment. You are correct. A couple of the notice of violations did mention specifically Santa Rosa, at one point over pumping, and then contesting whether or not we should be able to pull from the Santa Rosas at all. And I don't have the exact language, and Mr. Carmel might, but unless it's an emergency. And then Mr. Green can attest to that when we hit that dry season, we need to stop pumping from San Simeon because we can affect that mounding effect, saltwater intrusion. So we do have to shift to the Santa Rosas, not to mention if there's any type of other emergency that leaves us with the Santa Rosas as our only water source. So this in-stream flow study is going to kind of support our ability to pump from the Santa Rosas. And it's not related to the WRF, but it's related to San Simeon in a certain way. So there is some connection there to our ability to pump from our existing aquifers. And then I'll turn it over to Mr. Green.
Right. So we've had some unvalidated claims by some agencies here, and this is our chance to prove that or find that out to the opposite of that. So again, these statements have been made. There's been no validation or documentation to prove those claims. So this is our chance to put the rubber on the road and show our impacts, if any.
Okay.
That's why we're choosing to do that this time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Green. Yes, Director Dean, this went before your committee.
Yes, I was just going to say this. We had a thorough discussion about this at the Resources and Infrastructure Committee and talked about how we needed to see what effect our pumping of Santa Rosa Creek had on the stream flows and the habitat. And the Resources and Infrastructure Committee unanimously agreed that this would be a very valuable study. And as Mr. Jarrett said, the study in 2014 was only a preliminary study, and we really need to do a thorough study to make sure we are not damaging the habitat and that our pumping is not causing adverse effects.
Thank you. Okay, Vice President Thomas.
I really wanted to ask, are you ready for a motion?
Yes.
I'd be happy to make the motion.
Okay.
That we approve the consulting services agreement with Stillwater Sciences for the in-stream flow study for Santa Rosa Creek and adoption of resolution 17-2025, amending the fiscal year 2025 budget.
I second. Oh,
Okay. May I second the motion?
you may second, yes.
President Scott?
Yes.
I just want to make the comment. I appreciate the remarks that Director Dean, who is the chair of the Resources and Infrastructure Committee, I appreciate the comments that she made, as well as Director Gray helped me make my decision. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Dotson.
I'm just ready whenever you need a motion.
I'm ready.
Okay.
Motion. Oh,
Director Gray?
wait, we already had a
I
motion
move.
for you.
Yeah.
Director Thomas made the motion.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Vice President Thomas?
Aye.
Director Dean?
Aye.
Director Gray?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
President Scott?
Aye. Okay.
So back to.
So back to the previous, thank you so much, Mr. Jarrett. We really
you very much.
appreciate your being here and being so patient with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's go back then to agenda item 6D. This is the discussion and consideration of alternatives to completion of the Cambria Skate Park. So I don't have, I don't think, no, I didn't get another slip, but I do want to ask if there's anyone in-house that would like to comment on this agenda item that has not already commented. Yes, please come up to the microphone, Mr. Howell.
Thank you, Don Howell, Cambria. Having been on the board when this was first started, I have a certain fondness for the project. The idea of a public-private cooperation was, during my time on the board, was something that board really was trying to encourage, and we're very pleased with how that came out. What I'm hearing now, and what I think this board, and if I were on this board, what I would like to hear from the audience, the interested parties, is that given that it's an almost certainty that there will be a shortfall, that is to say, this is going to cost more than whatever the estimate is. Okay, assuming that that is true, then as the project moves forward, it puts the district's general fund at risk. So the question that this board needs to answer, or to have answered for them, is, are the interested parties willing to assume that risk? Or are we simply asking the board to assume the risk? And if it's the board that's assuming the risk, then that is the community. And the money that's involved will not be our utility rates, but it will affect the maintenance of the ranch, the various other activities which are covered by the general fund. So what we need to hear from the people behind me is, and I think we're hearing it, but I'd like to have heard it stronger, that they will undergo whatever needs to be done. Okay. Good. Well, thank you. Because this is
Yeah.
good. This is what we want to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. So, board members, discussion. Yes, Director Farmer.
I should have probably waited till other directors
Oh.
made a comment, but during the course of this discussion, and even while Mr. Jared was talking, I'm thinking back to, because I'd say I'd been active in that I spent a lot of time on Friday afternoons out there at farmers market time, helping to raise funds, holding the sign ups, Skate Cambria, that type of thing, donate. And I can remember not just locals, but people from out of town. I remember this one fellow, I think he was driving like an orange Corvette or something, and he just drove up and handed two $100 bills. And the enthusiasm and the passion, not just from people that live here, but people that are just driving through town. And it's still going on whenever we're out there, and it's not as frequent as it used to be. Anytime that we're out there promoting the skate park, people donate money, and often it's people that are just visiting here. So there's a heartfelt sense of, how could we say it? When you see young people having a good time, and I think if I would include Chelsea, when you see older folks having a good time at this skate park, well, older compared to teenagers, there's a vitality and enthusiasm, a sense of community spirit that takes place, especially when it's visible. And at the past location, Wayne Gracie was alluded to something, and Lady Diane Brooke, when she first spoke about when the skate park was initially built, it was all done by volunteers. I mean, that's the kind of passion that we had for volunteers that donated their time and material to build the initial skate park. Obviously, that's not going to happen this time, but I think the closer we get to this event happening and the fundraising that I believe will absolutely take place with whatever is needed, it will create an energy in this community that we haven't seen in a long time. And I'm looking forward to it. And let's just move forward as best we can.
So, any other? Yes, Director Gray.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, President Scott. Yeah, I was, when I was listening to Mr. Howell, give his his comment there, I said to myself, bingo, because he nailed the issue for us. Who assumes the risk? There will be overruns. Projects like this, you have to assume will be overruns because they inevitably happen. And I think the principle we've been following all along on this board is that there is and it's stated in our memorandum of understanding with the community council, is that we have a capped contribution, 178,000, to protect the public. We have to keep that. That's basically hard. We can't go above that because what happens is, of course, if we start assuming the risk for the overruns, we're cutting not just into ranch maintenance, we're cutting into fire.
Yeah.
And general fund is very, very important stuff. And we're cutting into a lot of important reserves that can be used for unforeseen expenses, not just in the general fund, but also unforeseen expenses in the enterprise funds. So we have committed to that as a board to maintain that cap on our contribution. I guess my question is, how is this to be done? It sounds like there's not a lot of love here in the community for the East Ranch location. I can tell that. But I suspect that a lot of people in the community would not want us to be careless with their money on this issue. So my question is for the board and maybe the staff is there a way to ensure that our risk is capped and that the enthusiasm of the community, as it's demonstrating today for fundraising, is sufficient to raise the money that's going to be needed? That's my question.
Yes, Vice President Thomas.
Thank you, President Scott, and well said, Director Gray. And I just wanted to say, reading through the comments, spending hours reading through the comments yesterday and this morning warmed my heart. The love, the passion, the energy, young and old, it just warmed my heart. It appears to me, I would say, and if we come around to asking for a motion, it would be something like this, but it feels that we need to clarify, well, three things, and then one more, right? Accept the grant. As it is, we clarify, probably in an additional MOU, who bears the risk of cost overruns. Well stated. Define the gap. And we know one thing is that we never know what anything is going to cost in the future. There's always uncertainty. But all right, put a number down and say, this is the gap. And then the community can get after that. Once that number is defined, I think we've heard loud and clear, and I have no doubt that when the community council has the funds to close that defined gap, then we issue we go out for RFP. That would be, to me, the logical path forward. And with the foundation of having that memorandum of understanding of here's who bears the risk for cost overruns. Yeah.
Thank you. I have a question for Mr. Carmel. So would what Vice President Thomas is talking about, would that be a completely new MOU, or would that be an amendment for an MOU, for this MOU?
I think it could be either, but
Okay.
the preference would be, I think, a clear new one that
Yes.
establishes these terms.
Yes, thank you. That's what I was thinking. So that would be part of a motion. If we are ready to do that, unless I have Any other discussion?
President Scott, can I ask a question?
Yes, you. yes,
And
you
then
may.
this also be for Mr. Carmel. Once we get into the project and we see the overruns, do we stop construction and wait for the community council to close the gap because we established this new MOU that says they're responsible?
I think that would be in the MOU. We'd have to put that in the MOU.
Mr. Carmel, can you help me? How would that work once we started breaking ground and construction? And then we have overruns and we're requiring the community council to close those gaps, but we're already into the project spending money.
It would be awkward and filled with risks, but it could be done.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah.
Yep. I don't see the problem with the current MOU actually. Why we can't stick with it. Because if the advocates for the skate park say they can raise the money, I think we can stay at our level.
But
at
it
our
doesn't
contribution level.
speak to the overruns.
Well, it does actually. I think when I mean, basically our liability is capped under the current MOU, and all overruns are the responsibility of the fundraise of the of the private entity to cover. That's already that's kind of what we have now.
Is that clear in the MOU, Mr. Carmel?
At this point, it is clear in the MOU.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
great.
think the unsaid is that it's reserves we're talking about that are at risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we're committing them.
Okay. Yes.
Okay,
Director.
Director Carmel.
Yes.
Okay, so he just said that overruns, it is our reserves that are at risk. I believe that's why Vice President Thomas wanted a new MOU or an amendment to the MOU to make it clear that any cost overruns had to be covered by the council.
That's correct. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
So you recommend that we do draft another MOU to state that?
I think the MOU in place doesn't really contemplate the factual situation involving reserves. I think articulating it clearly would benefit and better protect the district.
Okay, so can I ask the public again?
Yes.
If they agree to an MOU to state that any cost overruns will be covered by fundraising?
I'm sorry, but I haven't recognized you. Just a moment, please.
Director Dean just asked members of the public if they could speak to this.
I meant raise
No.
your hands.
Yeah, raise your hands.
Sorry.
Well, you've already spoken on this agenda item.
Okay.
I think you just need to sit down, please. Yes. Okay, so raise your hands. Okay. No, I think we've already we have another meeting starting at noon. So I think we have a general nodding of the head, but it would be spelled out in either an amendment or a new MOU, and that would be then to be approved by the board. Well, that would be part of the motion, okay? It's already been approved. Well, it would be funded.
We should.
Oh, we can't do anything until our next board.
Yeah, I'm going to question. I had a question about the date. The grant. I asked this question of Mr. McElhenney. The grant has been accepted already.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
And I didn't hear the question entirely, but we've already accepted the grant. We've turned in all the
Right.
paperwork.
Yeah.
We've been told, and Mr. Green can follow up, that the funding date and funding sounds is a weird statement because it's actually, yeah, you've been funded, but we can start submitting for reimbursements.
Right.
And that is pending April 1st.
Okay.
And not April Fools, but really it's supposed to
Yeah.
it's supposed to hit April 1st.
Yeah. So this motion, okay, this motion will include that. And also the other things that people have suggested, and then we'll have to vote on that. Is there anything else that oh, yes.
I would
Director.
like Vice President Thomas to repeat what he had just recommended, please.
Yes, that was good.
Thank you. So, and just before I make the motion, I just wanted to comment, great question that came up from the general manager, I believe, on what happens if we become aware that costs are escalating. Do we stop construction? If you want to drive up costs, that's the best way, is to stop and restart. And that would not be what we would want to do. And if we need to get that written into the MOU, so be it, and that conversation will happen. But my motion is that we receive funding of the current grant. We specifically and definitively define the gap. We provide the number. We also clarify who bears the risks of cost overruns, either in a new MOU or amendment, as we figure out which is appropriate. And when the community council has that amount of funds and has that gap closed, we go out to RFP.
Can I follow up on that, President Scott? Just Mr. Green tapped me. Once we're funded and we start submitting invoices for reimbursement,
Yeah.
we're on the clock to have that project complete.
In
And-
3 years.
Well, it's going backwards to our previous.
Once you submit for invoicing, it's 2 years.
Okay,
We could have that for up to 3 if we ask for an extension after 1,
okay,
if we haven't submitted any invoicing.
Right.
So just want
Okay.
to make it clear, once we submit invoicing, we need to complete the project within 2 years.
okay.
Okay?
But there is some concern, I think, from the staff level of trying to stay within the parameters. If we don't stop construction when we have the overruns, are we saying we'll complete the project and then come back later?
What we're saying is that it'll be defined in the MOU.
Okay.
And we have to approve that MOU
Understood.
at our next meeting. Okay,
So was that a motion by Vice President Thomas?
It was.
Then I'll second the motion.
I still have some questions about, the defining of the gap, I think, is, does it mean that anything over that is an overrun? Or, and that's the question I have about some of the language in the motion is a little bit murky to me. In other words, when does the gap have to be
well,
nailed down?
well, it needs to be, it should be nailed down, but it's not going to be, there's going to be overruns. So bottom line is that we just need to make sure that the council is, signs on to an MOU that says that they are going to be responsible for the overruns. So they need to define the gap, but it probably will be more
And
than.
they're also responsible for the gap, of course,
That's
too.
right.
Yeah.
I think if I understand Director Gray correctly, he wants to know when that gap will be defined
Oh,
and what it will be before we can go out to RFP.
we should
Is that
present it. That needs to be in the MOU.
Is
Yeah,
that?
it does actually. In RFP, of course, we'll
Yeah.
get bids back and that will
Right.
kind of define the gap.
Right.
So it's actually at the bidding completion process is when we really know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So you have to be clear about that.
So do we need to amend the motion? No? Okay, all right.
President Scott,
Yes, sir. I
Um,
didn't see your light on.
that's all right. This agenda item is discussion and consideration of alternatives to completion of the Cambria Skate Park project to include location. So is there a possibility in the motion that's been made that is unfortunately the way my brain works? It's a little beyond my understanding, but is there a way that we can include 1043 Main Street as the location of the project in the motion?
I accept that friendly amendment. That was my intent. So thank you for that friendly amendment. That
Well, we're all
the
friends
address
here, you
is 1043 Main Street. Thank you for that.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Hey, I'm going to ask Ms. Dodson, do you have that motion clear?
I do.
Would you read it, please?
Vice President Thomas moved to receive funding for the current grant, specifically defining the gap, providing the number, and also clarifying who bears the risk of cost overruns by a new MOU or amendment. When the community council has the funds and the gap is closed, we go out to RFP. Director Farmer provided an amendment that the location for the skate park be 1043 Main Street, and Vice President Thomas seconded that amendment, and Director Dean seconded the motion.
Okay. Any questions? All right, let's go ahead and vote.
Vice President Thomas,
Aye.
Director Dean,
Aye.
Director Gray,
Aye.
Director Farmer,
Aye.
President Scott.
Aye. Be careful what you ask for.
I want to thank everybody for coming and speaking up and showing your support. It is very much appreciated, and obviously we listen to you.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I'm going to go ahead and break for our 12 o'clock meeting. So I guess we adjourn to, yes. And well, I just want to know, we'll have him announce the closed meeting. But let's go ahead and do it now, is my point.
I just
Okay.
want to thank all the adults showing up to support the kids.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr.
And-
Carmel.
I wanted to clarify, you're adjourning until the end of the special meeting closed session. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. The board will now adjourn to a closed session for a public employee performance evaluation pursuant to Government Code Section 54957B1. The title of the position being evaluated is General Manager. Thank you.
Thank you very much.